Why are languages powerful? Number one, what makes languages so special? What makes languages so special? Or just language. What makes language so special? First of all, God created it. God created language. Genesis 1:3, it says, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. There is power in the spoken word. God used the spoken word to create everything. He said, let there be light, and there was light. Spoken language is powerful. Only humans use spoken language to communicate. Language expresses what we know and believe. And as Christians, we can use language to express what we know and believe about the Lord Jesus Christ. God created foreign languages. God created foreign languages. In Genesis 11:1, if you have your Bible and you want to look at that, Genesis 11:1 talks about how God created foreign languages. You've probably thought about this before, but where did foreign languages come from? You probably have an idea, but I think this is interesting to look in Genesis chapter 11, verse 1. And it says, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, right? Let's skip down to verse 4. It says, and they said, these are all the people that were of one language on the earth. A group of people were together there. They said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Okay, so they got together and they said, let's build a tower so we can reach to heaven, and let us make us a name. Why did they want to do that? Because they had a lot of pride. They wanted to be stronger and more powerful. They wanted to make themselves a name. And I think the next part of the verse is interesting. It says, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. They knew that something bad was going to happen to them. If they didn't do something to make their name great, they knew that something bad was going to happen. And so they decided to build this tower. Look at verse 6. It says, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be refrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language. This is what the Lord said. Let us go confound their language, or confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. They stopped building this tower. So this is interesting. You've probably studied about this before, how God created different languages. So God created foreign languages. Because of sin, God scattered the people because of sin. The next point says language is God's gift to man to glorify the name of the Lord and to broadcast his name throughout the whole earth. So this is a gift. Language is a gift from God. Life is a gift from God. Language is a gift from God to glorify the Lord's name and to broadcast his name throughout the whole earth. Language is given to us by God. Why? To communicate the gospel. As Christians, we're given language so we can tell other people about Jesus, I believe. That's what the Bible talks about for Christians, something for us to do for the Lord. Okay, number 2, why should Christians learn a foreign language? So why should we learn a foreign language? Do you know many Christians that speak different languages? Sometimes it's hard to find American Christians who speak different languages. A lot of Americans don't do that. Why? So why should Christians learn a foreign language? Why is that good? Why would that be a good thing? Okay, unreached people groups around the world need the gospel. There are a lot of people groups around the world who need the gospel. They've been unreached. Okay, what is an unreached people group? What does that mean? This is a person, those people without a preacher or the scriptures. So if you want to find out more about these unreached people groups, you can go to an interesting website. It's www.firstbible.net. So go to firstbible.net and you'll find out more about these unreached people groups. There are lots of them. Some of them don't even have a language. They don't have a written language. They may have an oral language, but they don't have a written language. And so it would be interesting to go and try to help them with that. Okay, what's another reason that Christians should learn a foreign language? What about the international population that's growing in our country? We have some people from Canada here, and I know you all have a lot of international people in your country. So there are lots of international people around us who may never have heard the gospel before. And so we don't have to travel far to find people who need to hear the gospel. They're coming to our countries. They're coming to Canada and to America. And so we need to be wise as Christians to know how to reach them for the Lord. Okay, look at the next point. 70% of Americans interact every day with someone whose native language is not English. So it's not hard to find people that don't speak English to try to interact with right where you live. We have Walmart right down the road here. This is a little city. This isn't even really considered Knoxville. But down the road in this area, right over here at Walmart, almost every time I go in there, if I listen carefully, if I'm not in a hurry, if I listen, I hear many different languages spoken. I'll hear some Spanish, or I'll hear some Vietnamese, or I'll even hear Russian sometimes. That's exciting. So there are lots of international people. I'm sure you're from a city that's probably a little bit bigger or just the same size as Knoxville. So if we have those people right here in Knoxville, then I bet where you are, you have them too. You just have to kind of open your eyes a little wider and ask the Lord to show you where they are and to be aware that they're there and think about what you can do to help them. Okay, look at the next point. These people are refugees, international students, and immigrants. Okay, so why are they in our country? They're refugees, international students, or they're immigrants. They're immigrating to our country here. Think about a refugee. I don't know if you know much about them, but they have gone through a lot of trouble to come out of the country that they're running from, basically. And so as Christians, we have a lot to offer them for help and to share the love of Christ with them. We can really encourage them to look to the Lord for their life. Okay, look at number 3. Who can learn a foreign language? Who can learn a foreign language? Do you think it's too hard? It's very hard, actually. If God confused it, when God does something, he does it very well, doesn't he? So he confused the languages in Genesis. We just read about that. And so it's hard. It's hard to learn a foreign language. He confused the languages on purpose. But anyone is the next point there. Anyone can learn to speak a foreign language. You don't have to have a certain special talent. Anybody can learn to speak a foreign language. Children are language learning machines. When God created us, he created us to learn language. So children are really adept to learning languages. So you all are not really children in here anymore. You're nearly adults. But you can still work on it too, and adults can do it as well. It's optimal to begin language learning before you start your teenage years. But the sooner you start, the better. The sooner you start, the better. Teens and adults can apply what they've learned about their first language to learning a second language. So I'm guessing that you all go to pretty good schools wherever you're from, and you've studied a lot about grammar. How many of you go to a Christian school? Okay, a lot of you go to a Christian school. So you've probably worked really hard to study a lot about English. You know a lot about our grammar. I'm sure you all read very well. So hopefully. So you can take all of those things you've learned about English, about your first language, and apply them to learning a second language. The Lord will help you. The more you know about your first language, the easier it will be for you to learn a second language. It's really hard to teach someone another language who's illiterate in their first language. But that wouldn't probably apply to any of you. All of you look very well educated. So you look literate in your first language, and you can apply that to learning a second language. Americans or Canadians who know the sounds of English, the grammar of English, and culture of English make the best foreign language learners. Okay, so if you know the phonetics or the sounds of English, all of you are pretty familiar with that, I think. The grammar of English and the culture of English, you're going to be a good foreign language learner. It's going to help you. Okay, number 4, what language should I learn? Okay, we've talked all about, it's not really easy, but what makes language so special? God created it. Why should Christians learn a foreign language? Who can learn a foreign language? Everyone can learn a foreign language. So if you think you might want to learn another language, which language would you pick? If you had to choose, which language would you pick? How many of you have an interest, or you would have a language to say? Raise your hand if you have a language in your mind. Okay, that's several of you. Good. That's great. There are some resources where we can go to look at different languages and help us to make decisions about which language we might like to learn. Okay, look at the next point. It says ethnologue. I'll spell that for you. It's ETHNOLOGUE, ethnologue. And their website is on the resource page that I gave you at the end of your handout. But ethnologue reports that there are more than 7,000 spoken or signed languages. When we think about foreign languages, we also have to think about sign language for the deaf. And every country has their own sign language. We have American Sign Language, and there's Chinese Sign Language, and every country has their own sign language. So that's very interesting. 25%, this is kind of an interesting statistic, 25% of languages have fewer than 1,000 speakers. So 25% of all the languages have fewer than 1,000 speakers. It's kind of an interesting fact. Then let's talk about the numbers of native language speakers then. Let's say you're thinking about which language to learn, and you're thinking, I want to learn a language that has a lot of people that speak it in the whole world. So the numbers of native language speakers, 9 million native speakers. What language would you say that is? Which language has more native speakers of that language in the whole world? No? What do you think? No? I heard it over here. Chinese. There are more Chinese people in the world than any other nationality. So, of course, there are 900 million native speakers. Okay, what about 300 million native speakers? What 3 languages would have about 300 million native speakers? What do you think? No? Spanish is in that group. Good. What else? English is in that group. And there's one other highly populated Asian country. No. That's a big country, though. What'd you say? Not Vietnamese. Not Russian. Yes? Not Japanese. It's an Asian country that's very big. Okay, she said India. Great. So Hindi is that language. So Hindi, English, and Spanish have 300 million native speakers. Okay, what about the third group here? 100 to 200 million native speakers. There are 8 languages that fall into this category. Okay, French is here. These are the popular languages that we think about learning. French? Yes? Well, French is spoken in Africa, but there is an Afrikaans language, but that's not in this group. What other language do you think? Think about all the languages people learn in high school. Okay, Russian is here. Well, I didn't put sign language on my list, but it needs to be on here because there are a lot of American Sign Language and other sign languages here. But I didn't put any sign languages here. So what other language do you think? Not Swedish. German is good. Okay, so far we have Russian, German, and French. We need a few more. No. Okay, Japanese is in this group, so we need 4 more. We have Japanese, Russian, German, do we say German, I think, and French. Okay, so there are 4 other languages that have lots of speakers. Not Swahili. Yes? Not even Italian. That's kind of strange. Yes? Not Latin. Did you say Latin? No. Latin's kind of a dead language. We read it and study it for other languages. Okay, should I tell you? Anybody else have a guess? Any more guesses? Okay, Bengali is one. Indonesian is another one. You might not have thought of those. But how about Portuguese? Brazil is a large country in South America. There are lots of Portuguese speakers, and there are people in Africa that speak Portuguese. And you missed a big one that's coming into our country. It starts with an A. Arabic, yes. Okay, so Bengali, Portuguese, Russian, Indonesian, Japanese, Arabic, German, and French. So we've just listed a lot of popular languages that have lots of speakers. So if you're thinking about a language to learn, you might want to choose one of these because you're going to find a lot of people to talk to if you can learn that language. Okay, what language should I learn? Here's something else to think about. Choose a language related to an unreached people group. So think about a group of people that don't have scripture in their language, and think about a language that's related to this unreached people group. Ask the Lord for an international friend and learn that language. It's really hard to learn a language unless you have someone to practice speaking to. So that's one thing I want you to think about, praying about, asking the Lord to help you to find an international friend that you could practice speaking to, and they could teach you some of their language and you could teach them English. That would be great. Okay, number 5, how can I learn a foreign language? So how do you learn a foreign language? There are lots of things we could talk about, but we'll just talk about a few things here. Language learning takes time. Takes a lot of time to learn another language. It's a practice skill, like playing the piano or learning to fly an airplane. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to learn Chinese. It's a lifelong process, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of practice. You have to practice it every day. Probably the best thing, just like practicing to play the piano. There are 3 things needed to learn a foreign language. 3 things that you need. The first one is interactive study of the language. So it has to be interactive. You can't just sit down and study a book. That's not going to really help you learn another language. You'll know about the language, but you won't know how to speak it. So you really need someone to interact with, and you can do that online. If you don't have a native speaker with you in your hometown, maybe you can find someone online, and we'll talk about some resources for that in just a minute. Okay, this includes pronunciation, grammar, and culture. You also need prolonged exposure to the language. So after you study the language and you interact in the language, maybe in your hometown, then you need to travel to a country that speaks that language and have some prolonged exposure to the language where you're trying to live and use it all the time. And then you also need a native speaker to help make sense of the language. There are lots of exceptions to rules and cultural things that you may not understand. So you need a friend to help you make sense of the language. Okay, well, I thought that we would take a little bit of time and practice learning another language. Okay, so we're going to learn some Chinese today. And this will be fun, and then we'll talk about some resources, and then we'll be finished. All right, so before we can learn how to say a little conversation in Chinese, I lived in China for a few months, and I learned a little bit. So I thought it would be fun to kind of practice this. So let's learn some vocabulary words first, and then we'll practice a conversation. You look like a nice group, and I think you're going to do well. Okay, so our first word is hua. Hua. Repeat hua. Okay, you can see what hua is. I'm going to try not to use a lot of English and just use Chinese and teach you this lesson just in Chinese. Okay? So hua, hua, hao, 非常好, Bingling, 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 Bolo, 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 very good. Okay, Hua, Bingling, Bolo. Okay, another one is Mingzi, Mingzi, Wo Jiao, Miss Deeringer, Mingzi, Wo da Mingzi, sure, Miss Deeringer. Miss Deeringer is Wo da Mingzi. Nida Mingzi. Nida Mingzi. Wo da Mingzi, Miss Deeringer. Mingzi? Lydia. Good, good. Mingzi. Mingzi. Wo da Mingzi, Miss Deeringer. Mingzi? Anybody else? Mingzi? Okay, good. We'll practice it a little bit more. Okay. This is Wu, 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 San, and E. Wu. Say Wu, San, and E. Okay, let's just practice it. Ni hao ma. How, 非常好, Mama hoo hoo, boo how. 你叫什么名字? 我叫 Miss Deeringer. 我想要买 我想要买 bolo. 我想要买 bolo. 多少钱? Bolo 是5角1 2 3 4 5 5角。我想要买冰淇淋，多少钱？冰淇淋是3角1 2 3。我想要买花，多少钱？花是1角1角。谢谢，再见。All right, this time I'm going to say and you repeat it, okay? 你好吗？好，非常好。Mama hoo hoo. Boo how. 你叫什么名字？我叫 Miss Deeringer. Not Miss Deeringer. 我叫 Miss Deeringer. Okay. 我想要买 bolo. 多少钱？ bolo 是5角。我想要买冰淇淋。多少钱？冰淇淋是3角。我想要买花。多少钱？花是1角。谢谢，再见。 Okay, good. Let's do it all together this time. So all together. We'll go slow. You're doing a good job. You're not going to get it perfectly, so you're doing a good job just trying. Okay, here we go. Ni hao ma, hao, fei cheng hao, mama hoo hoo, boo hao. Ni jiao shin ma ming zi, wo jiao, Miss Deeringer. Wo shang yao mai bolo, dor shao chin, bolo shi wu jiao. Wo shang yao mai bingjiling, dor shao chin, bingjiling shi san jiao. Wo shang yao mai hua, dor shao chin, hua shi yi jiao. Shi. Zai chin. Okay, this time I'm going to say A. I'm going to say all the A's, and I want you all to say B. Okay, here we go. Ni hao ma. Ni jiao shin ma ming zi. Wo jiao Miss Deeringer. Try it again. Wo. Good. Wo shang yao mai bolo. Dor shao chin. Wo shang yao mai bingjiling. Dor shao chin. Wo shang yao mai hua. Dor shao chin. Shishay. Zai chin. Good job. This group is doing great, and y'all are doing pretty good too. Okay, this time, I'm going to let you say A, and I'll say B. Okay, so you practice saying A by yourself, and I'll say B. Okay, ready? Go. How, fei cheng how, mama hoo hoo, boo how. Wo jiao, Miss Deeringer. Shao chin. Bolo shi wu jiao. Wo shang yao mai bingjiling. Dor shao chin. Bingjiling shi san jiao. Wo shang yao mai hua. Dor shao chin. Hua shi yi jiao. Zai chin. Okay, good. Now, this time we're going to split it up and make your group even smaller. I'm going to let you all be A and you all be B. And I'm going to listen to you, okay? And I'll try to help you as I go. Okay, you ready? Go. How, fei cheng how, mama hoo hoo, boo how. Wo jiao. Good. Bolo shi wu jiao. Good. Wo shang yao mai bingjiling, dor shao chin, ling shi san jiao. Good. Wo shang yao mai hua, dor shao chin, hua shi yi jiao. Okay, good job. Y'all are doing great. There's just more of them over here. Okay, let's switch it. And this time you're going to say A and you're going to say B. And after this, I'm going to give you a partner. And you can say it one-to-one with your partner, okay? Okay, ready? Okay, here we go. Ready? Here we go. Ni hao ma. Ni jiao shin ma ming zi. Good. Wo shang yao mai bolo. Dor shao chin. Wo shang yao mai bingjiling. Dor shao chin. Wo shang yao mai hua. Dor shao chin. Shishay. Okay, good. Y'all are doing well, so well. Okay, find a partner. Everybody find somebody to talk to, and we're just going to do it for 2 minutes. Okay, go. Shishay? At the end there. Zaichin. At the very bottom. Zaichin. Okay, great. I hear a lot of good things. What are you saying? I didn't tell you what you're saying, but what are you saying? What does this say? How are you? What is this? Good? Very good? Bad. Good. What about this? What is this one? Good. What's your name? And my name is? How about this one? Okay, actually this says, I want to buy whatever, and then this is how much, and then this is, like the pineapple is $5, like, and then what is this? Shishay, thank you, and goodbye. Okay, great. So you know some Chinese now. You learned a little bit of language. So you can go out. How many of you know someone that speaks Chinese? You've ever seen them in near your house? Okay, maybe go down to the Chinese restaurant and find somebody. That's great. Okay, we have one more thing to talk about here. Get your green paper, and let's look at some resources. Some resources for language learning. Was this too hard? No, it just took some interaction back and forth, right? You didn't have to sit and study a book by yourself, but because we interacted, and that's what you're looking for. If you find someone that says they're going to teach you language, find someone that will interact with you. And that's the only way you're going to learn language, really. So someone that makes it simple, lots of repetition, and uses some pictures and some visual things that you can practice. That's going to help you learn the language. So what about resources for language learning? I listed some things here. The first one is International Language Navigators. That's our special school here that we have at Crown College to encourage people about learning languages. And we have some foreign language teachers here in the college, a few of them. We're always looking for more. And we'd like to give people an opportunity to learn languages while they come here to college. We also do tutoring in different languages, so but most of you aren't from around here, so that's not going to help you very much. But we also like to give lots of resources for language learning, things that you can do on your own wherever you are in the world where you live. Okay, the next one is Live Mocha. LiveMocha.com, M-O-C-H-A. You can go to this website, and this is an interactive language learning website. It used to be free, but I don't think it's free anymore. But you can go check it out. I'm not sure how much it is, but I've heard that this is an interesting one. Then, of course, the next one is Rosetta Stone. You might be familiar with that one. And that's really an interesting way to learn languages. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. It's hard. But if you are wanting to learn languages, ask the Lord to help you, and you can work and do it. Do a good job. The next one is 10 minutes a day, and I brought this one with me. This is a little book. This one's for Russian. I like Russian, and I'd like to learn more. It's a fun language. But this curriculum says that if you spend 10 minutes every day, you have to do it every day, but 10 minutes a day, you can start to learn some language on your own. It's hard to find somebody sometimes to teach you language. It's expensive. It's just hard to arrange it. It's expensive is one of the main reasons that we don't do it. But it's hard to find a good language teacher. But in 10 minutes a day with something like this, you can start to learn language. One of the great things about this is it has a CD-ROM in the back that has like little games that you can play. You put it in your computer and it plays little games with you. Then it also has stickers that you post all around your house. So when you start to learn a vocabulary word, you can put these things on the chair or on the light, the lamp, or on the refrigerator, and you can remember the word, and you start to learn it that way. There are flashcards and lots of interesting things there. So they have these in other languages as well. Okay, then my newest fun resource for learning languages on the internet, it's where you see e-teacher. Why don't you put Chinese as the first one? eTeacherChinese.com. This one's really interesting. My friend was telling me about it, and it's almost like you're Skyping with a Chinese tutor. And you see her face, and you see your face there, and then in the middle is like a PowerPoint presentation with the lesson. And she's helping you with your pronunciation. She's watching your mouth, and you have like a private language lesson with a Chinese teacher who's actually in China, and you do it on Skype every week or so. But they have Chinese, they also have Yiddish, they have Hebrew, e-teacher Hebrew, and then e-teacher biblical if you want to learn biblical Hebrew. A lot of people are interested in that. So there's a few resources for language learning. Also, look at the last page. Let's talk about this real quick. There's nothing to fill in here, but some more resources for foreign language learning. You can get a word-by-word picture dictionary and start to learn vocabulary words like that. It's better if you have someone to practice on and can interact with, but these are available in lots of different languages and English, like a little bilingual dictionary. We talked about 10 minutes a day and Live Mocha and Rosetta Stone and eTeacher Chinese. Some other helpful websites is firstbible.net. They talk about resources for reaching unreached people groups, the 1040 window. What if you find somebody that speaks another language in your city, wherever you live, and you want to witness to them? You want to give them the gospel, but you don't speak their language. What do? You can give them a track in their language, and there were some tracks back there for you guys to take with you. But this is a great resource, globalrecordings.net. It's the third one down in the second section here on your resource page. They have a gospel recording in over 5,000 different languages, almost 6,000 different languages. They've worked really hard to have someone record a gospel message there. So if your friend, probably more than likely, has the internet, you can go to this website with your friend, pick their language, and they can listen to a message about the gospel in their language. They have people giving their testimony about how they became Christians that are from your friend's country that speaks another language. So it's a great resource for you to look at. bbnradio.org, they have broadcasting in 8 different languages. So one thing about learning languages that's interesting is you need to start listening to another language before you start to speak it. Listening is really important. So before you try to start speaking a foreign language, just go and listen. You don't have to go to another country. Go to the internet and start listening to another language. It helps your ears to get used to it and your mind to start processing it. Even though you don't understand what you're hearing, it's good for you if you want to learn that language. So you can do that. Faith for the Family, that's our website here. And we have our pastor's book recorded in many languages there, so you can listen to that. Multilanguage Media, there's Ambassadors for Christ is about Chinese literature. Fellowship Track League has lots of tracks in different languages. Trinitarian Bible Society, you can get Bibles in different languages. Bearing Precious Seed, and Ethnologue, we already talked about that. Okay, learning a foreign language is for everyone, not just for the smart people, but for everyone. Everyone can learn a language. It's fun, it's challenging, but it's not impossible. God has given Christians the wonderful gift of language to express what we think and believe about Jesus Christ. So we as Christians should be diligent to gather many tools to reach the lost, including a powerful second language. So I hope I've encouraged you about learning another language. Let's trust the Lord and ask Him to use us in this way. Ask Him to help us, to help you to learn another language. It's going to take a lot of work. It's not easy. It's hard. So I'd like for you to think about asking the Lord to help you with 2 things. Ask Him to help you to learn another language, and actually also to ask Him to help you to find someone from another country that speaks that language near where you live that can help you, and you can start to share the gospel with them too. That would be great. Be interesting to see who God brings across your path. If you have an interest in some language, then I believe that God can bring a person to meet you that speaks that language, and they can help you and you can help them, and it'll be a great thing in your life. So let's go ahead and pray and ask the Lord to help us with this. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I'm thankful for these young people that came today and for their desire to learn another language, at least their interest. And I pray that you would help them to have a greater interest to learn another language, and I pray that you would help them to use it to be an encouragement to people who don't know about you. Help us to use this powerful gift of language that you've given us to reach other people for you. Help us to use our English to reach people for you, but also I pray that you would help them to be able to learn a foreign language to reach people who are not speaking English with the gospel. I pray that you give us wisdom in these things and help these students to be able to do that. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.